Hi! In this video, we're going to watch part 3 of the 7 Beauties story. Let's get started.
On Monday, Bahram decided to visit the Green Dome. So, he put on green clothes and set off to meet the green-clad lady, Princess Persian. As Bahram strolled through this lush garden, he asked Persian to tell him a story. After praising the king, Persian began her tale with sweet words. In ancient times, in the land of Egypt, there lived a man who was loved by all for his kind-hearted, gentle, and pious character. He was skilled in every necessary art, and the people held him in high regard. They called him the pious man because he was an unparalleled example of resisting temptations, distinguishing between right and wrong, and living a life of piety. One day, the pious man was walking through a quiet alley. At the same time, a woman wearing a chador and a face veil was passing through the same alley. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, and the woman's chador fell from her head, revealing her extraordinarily beautiful face, a face that could tempt even the most devout. Her rosy cheeks, languid eyes, and long, fragrant hair were so captivating that they could steal the heart of any onlooker, and no one could resist such beauty. When the pious man saw this enchanting woman, he was utterly transformed. Overwhelmed by astonishment, he let out a short gasp. Hearing the sound, the woman quickly wrapped her chador and cloak around herself and disappeared from sight. But the pious man, stunned and bewildered by the encounter, stood frozen in place, unable to move. When he finally regained his composure, he felt as though he had lost his inner peace. He knew the woman was married and that desiring her was a great sin, yet love and longing had taken root in his heart, and he could find no way to calm himself. Realizing that if he were not careful, lust would overcome him and hell would await, he decided to make a pilgrimage to the Kaaba to seek God's help, hoping that the fire within him might be extinguished. The pious man sought refuge in the house of God and prayed fervently before him. He completed his pilgrimage to the Kaaba and, with a heart full of prayer and hope, began his journey back home. On his way back, the pious man encountered a fellow traveler who was filled with malice and spite. This man was arrogant and selfish, finding fault in every word. His words were dripping with sarcasm and bitterness, and he considered himself unmatched in speech and believed he knew everything. The man glanced at the pious man and asked, "What is your name? Tell me so I may call you by it." The pious man told him his name. The man, who never ceased his sarcastic and bitter remarks, sneered and said, "You are a disgrace to humanity. Your name means nothing." "My name is Malika. I am unmatched in all sciences, the knower of all knowledge. There is no one like me. I'm the one who has mastered all fields of learning. I know astronomy, I know medicine, I understand magic and sorcery. If famine comes, I predict it. If a kingdom falls into decline, I foresee it. Who knows alchemy besides me? Who knows sorcery besides me?" They walked a little further until, in the blue sky, a white cloud and a black cloud appeared. Malika, astonished by this phenomenon, asked the pious man about its cause. The pious man calmly replied, "This is the work of the Almighty God. His power governs all things, and he can shape the clouds into any form or color he desires." Malika responded mockingly, "What kind of explanation is that? An answer must be precise and accurate. The truth is, the dark cloud is formed from burnt and dry smoke, and the white cloud is made of moisture and humidity. To say it's because God willed it, how is that a reason?" When the pious man heard this, he replied, "If I don't answer with logic and reasoning, it doesn't mean I don't know or that I'm ignorant. Rather, it's because I see my knowledge as insignificant compared to the knowledge of the one God." They continued on their way until, after enduring the heat and dryness of the desert, they reached the shade and coolness of a tree with abundant leaves. Near the tree, there was a small well in the ground. Both drank from its water, and their thirst was quenched. When their thirst was satisfied, Malika asked the pious man, "Why was this well built here?" The pious man replied, "This good deed was done by one of God's righteous servants." Malika scoffed and said, "In this hot and dry desert, who would dig a well? This water is a trap set by hunters to catch their prey, not the work of a good servant of God." The pious man calmly continued, "You are like this yourself, and you think the same of others. The deceit is not in others but within you." Malika ignored these words and suddenly stood up. He looked at the clear water, took off his clothes, and prepared to wash himself in it. The pious man saw him and said with concern, "You drank the water and quenched your thirst, and now you want to pollute it?" The ill-intentioned man ignored the pious man's words and, paying no attention to him, took off his clothes and jumped into the well. The pious man sat by the well and waited. When a long time passed and Malika did not emerge from the water, he grew worried and began to search for him. He looked into the water, but did not see Malika. He took a long stick from the tree and lowered it into the well to measure its depth. Suddenly, he realized that the well was actually deep and full of water, not shallow and small as it had seemed. After a while, Malika's lifeless body floated to the surface. The pious man pulled him out and buried him. Then he stood up. He gathered Malika's belongings and clothes to return them to his family. When he opened the bundle, he found bags full of coins among Malika's possessions. But he turned his gaze away from the coins and overcame his greedy desires. He then set out for the city to find Malika's family and return what was entrusted to him. When he reached the city, he asked people for directions to Malika's house. They showed him a large house, like a palace. He went to the door and met Malika's wife. He told her the story of her husband's ill intentions and his death. Then he placed the bags of gold in front of her and returned the entrusted property to its rightful owner. When the woman saw his honesty, tears streamed from her eyes behind her veil. She said, "Who could be as noble as you?" Malika was arrogant and oppressive. He always acted unjustly, never spoke the truth, and only deceived others. The woman continued, "For years, I've seen nothing but evil from him. The great God has removed his harm from the people of this land and from me." The woman was impressed by the pious man's nobility and found herself drawn to him. She removed her veil to show him her beauty. At that moment, the pious man suddenly recognized the beautiful face he had seen earlier that morning in the alley. Their hearts connected, and they lived together in happiness and prosperity for many years.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe and like.